At family dinner last Sunday, my sister Jessica introduced her new boyfriend, and for some reason, they all kept staring at me. When he asked what I do for work, my mom cut me off with a tight laugh. "Don't embarrass us." Everyone chuckled. My sister added, "Maybe lie this time, so you don't sound so pathetic." I just smiled. The same smile I'd perfected over 27 years. But they didn't know that smile was different. And I just sat there, waiting, until their faces went pale. Have you ever felt like the invisible one? The outsider in your own family? No matter how hard you tried. Let me know your story down in the comments. It all started about an hour earlier. The dinner wasn't at my parents' house. That would have been too casual, too real. No. This was a performance. My sister, Jessica, had booked the private founder's room at a high-end steakhouse downtown. The kind of place with dark mahogany walls, air that smelled like old leather and new money, and silverware so heavy it felt like a responsibility. I felt out of place the moment I walked in. I always do. My name is Lisa. I'm 27. And in my family, I'm the designated disappointment. My brother, Ryan, who's 30, was already holding court, leaning back in his chair, talking too loud about some real estate deal he'd just closed. He's all sharp suits and louder opinions. My parents, Linda and Richard, were hanging on his every word. My mom, Linda, was wearing pearls just for a steak dinner. My dad, Richard, was nodding along, looking proud in that way he only ever looks at Ryan or Jessica. And then there was Jessica. She's 25, 2 years younger than me. But in our family's eyes, she's light years ahead. She works in PR, or brand strategy, as she calls it, which basically means she gets paid a lot to have lunch and sound important. She made her entrance, not just walked in, and holding her hand was the reason for the whole event. Ethan. He was 32, tall, and wore a simple, tailored blazer that probably cost more than my kiln. He had this easy confidence that wasn't loud like my brother's. It was quiet, assured. Jessica was glowing, introducing him. Everyone. This is Ethan. He's a curator. A curator. Of course. It sounded expensive. Abstract. My parents were immediately impressed. My mom practically cooed. My dad shook his hand with a booming, "Welcome to the family." Son, I just sat there, nursing a glass of water. Watching the scene, they were all so shiny, so polished, and I was. Me, the artist, the one who, in their words, plays with broken pottery in a dusty studio. I was the stain on their perfect family portrait. And, for the next hour, they made sure I knew it. For the next 20 minutes, I listened to them toast each other. Ryan went on about a new high-rise he was developing, using words like leveraging and vertical integration, and my father just beamed. That's my boy, a true shark. Jessica talked about her new PR campaign for some luxury skincare brand, how she'd pivoted the entire narrative. My mother, Linda, clasped her hands together. Isn't she brilliant? Richard, just like I always said. I just sipped my water and drifted. This was nothing new. This was the soundtrack of my life. The constant, thrumming applause from my siblings, while I was just. The static in the background. I remember when I finished my master's in art history. I was the first in our family to get a postgraduate degree, I walked across the stage, found them in the crowd, and they waved. And then they left. They had to get back to beat the traffic. There was no celebration dinner, no congratulations card. Ryan had a golf tournament that weekend. And Jessica, I think she had a date. A year later, I got my first real grant. It was just $12,000. But it was enough to finally set up my own professional studio, to buy a real kiln. I called my mom, my voice shaking with excitement. She paused, and I heard her filing her nails over the phone. "Oh, good. Honey," she said, her voice distant. "At least it keeps you busy." Keeps me busy. Like a hobby. Like I was a child, they'd given some finger paints too. And as I sat there at that steakhouse, watching them praise Jessica for a PR campaign, I finally understood it. This wasn't just favoritism. It wasn't carelessness. It was a system. I'd read about it in psychology books. The golden child and the scapegoat. In some families, especially ones obsessed with their own image, they can't handle anything that doesn't fit their perfect narrative. My parents saw themselves as successful, so their children had to be reflections of that success. Ryan, with his aggressive real estate deals. Jessica, with her high glamour PR job. They were the golden children. Their successes were family successes. But me, I chose a different path. I chose art. I chose old. Broken things. I chose passion over a paycheck. To them, that was a threat. It was a crack in their perfect facade. So I was assigned a role. 2. The scapegoat. The one who had to be less than. The artistic one. The sensitive one. The one they could point to and feel superior. They didn't just overlook my successes, they had to actively diminish them. Because if I succeeded on my own terms, it meant their entire value system was wrong. They didn't just think I was pathetic. They needed me to be my small studio, my grant, my master's degree. None of it mattered because it wasn't their kind of success. I was the before picture they kept around to make their after look better. The realization settled over me, cold and heavy. They weren't just neglecting me. They were actively, systemically, keeping me in my place. All the little jokes, the forgetfulness, the backhanded compliments. It was all maintenance. I looked up from my plate, my focus snapping back to the room. The laughter had died down. It was quiet, and they were all staring at me. Ethan, the new boyfriend, was looking at me with a polite, curious smile. "Jessica mentioned you're an artist." 2. "Lisa," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "What kind of work do you do?" The air in the room went still. It was the same silence that always fell when I was about to speak. That fraction of a second where everyone braced themselves for me. Ethan was looking at me, his head tilted, that polite, genuine curiosity in his eyes. "What kind of work do you do?" I took a small breath, the one I always take before I minimize myself for their comfort. I actually work with ceramics." "I do." "Oh." "Ethan, don't." My mother, Linda, cut in, letting out a high-pitched, tense little laugh. She waved her hand as if shooing away a bad smell. "Don't embarrass us. Please. Don't ask her that. Don't make her talk about her art." My brother Ryan scoffed, rolling his eyes as he took a large gulp of his expensive wine. "We'll be here all night." My dad, Richard, I just shook his head, looking down at his plate, suddenly fascinated by his steak. I felt the familiar heat rise in my face. But the worst, as always, came from Jessica. She leaned forward, placing her hand gently on Ethan's arm, her voice dripping with the kind of fake pity she had perfected. He's right, Ethan. It's her little hobby. You know, she plays with broken pottery and glue. She then turned that pity-filled gaze on me. Her smile was tight, almost apologetics, as if I were the one creating this social nightmare. Honestly, Lisa, she whispered, just loud enough for the whole table to hear. Maybe lie this time, so you don't sound so pathetic. Just say you're in ceramic design or something. It sounds more professional. And then they laughed. It wasn't a huge, roaring laugh. It was worse. It was a quiet, knowing chuckle, a shared little joke. Ryan snorted again. My mother tittered behind her napkin. Even my father gave a small, weary smirk. They were all in on it. They all agreed. I was pathetic. I sat there, the sound of their amusement ringing in my ears. I felt the sting behind my eyes. That old, familiar burn of humiliation. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to shrink down until I was nothing but a shadow on the wall. For 27 years, that's what I would have done. I would have looked down, mumbled, "You're right," and waited for the subject to change. But something was different. Maybe it was the sheer, unadulterated cruelty of the word pathetic. Maybe it was the way they did it so casually, so openly, in front of a complete stranger. Or maybe it was just, I was done. The hurt was still there. But suddenly, underneath it, something else rose up. Something cold and clear and incredibly calm. I didn't shrink. I didn't look away. I looked up from my plate, and I smiled. It was the smile I had perfected. The one that said, "You can't touch me." The one that said, "I'm fine." I held that smile as I looked at Jessica, her face flushed with her own cleverness. I looked at Ryan, who was already signaling the waiter for more wine. I looked at my mother and father, who were now beaming at their golden children, so proud of their wit, and I just smiled. I let them have their laugh. I let them feel that little rush of superiority. I didn't say a word, because as I sat there, invisible and pathetic, I knew something they didn't. I knew what was coming. I knew that in a few moments, every single person at this table who was laughing at me would be choking on that laughter. They thought this was the end of my humiliation, but it was just the beginning of theirs. The laughter rippled across the table and died. But Ethan wasn't laughing. He had a small frown on his face, a look of genuine confusion. He looked at Jessica, then at my mother, then back at me. "Pathetic," he said, his voice quiet but clear. "I'm sorry. I think I misheard you. Why would that be pathetic?" The room went completely still. My mother's smile froze. "Well," Jessica stammered, "it's just, she takes old broken pots and glues them. It's not exactly a career." Ethan's frown deepened. "Glues them," he repeated, as if he'd never heard the word. "You mean kintsugi, the art of repairing fractured ceramics with lacquer and powdered gold." He looked around the table. You're aware that's one of the most complex and philosophically respected art forms in the world. Right. Sourcing the urushi lacquer alone is a nightmare. Not to mention the curing process. which can take weeks in a specialized chamber. Most people don't even have the patience for it, let alone the skill. My family stared at him blankly. My brother, Ryan, cleared his throat, clearly trying to save the moment. Right. Well, it's Nisha. It's not niche, Ethan said, his politeness starting to fade, replaced by the sharp focus of a professional. It's history. It's preservation. It's incredibly difficult. Jessica, seeing her new boyfriend defend me, tried to pivot. Right. Ethan. That's what I meant. It's just so artistic and complicated. We just tease her. It's a family thing. Ethan didn't even look at her. His eyes were locked on me. The air felt thin. He was analyzing, connecting dots. I could almost see the gears turning in his head. Jessica, he said slowly, still looking at me. You told me your sister was a hobbyist. You said she played with broken things. I mean, she does, Jessica said, her voice getting that high. Reedy tone it gets when she's cornered. Ethan ignored her. He was leaning forward now, his gaze intense. You specialize in kintsugi, he stated. Not a question. Your name is Lisa. What? What is your last name? It's Anderson, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I watched his eyes widen, a flicker of disbelief. Then a sudden, sharp intake of breath. He looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. Anderson, he repeated. He ran a hand through his hair. No, it couldn't be. He looked around the table, at my silent, confused family, and then back at me. His voice now filled with a strange, electrical excitement. Are you kintsugi? See, he asked. From the International Artisan Forums, the one based in the Pacific Northwest. My father looked at my mother. What in the hell is kintsugi? See, he muttered. I didn't answer Ethan. I didn't have to. I just held his gaze. And I let my smile, my real smile, finally appear. I just nodded. Ethan looked like he'd been electrocuted. He jumped to his feet, eyes wide. Oh my God, it is you. My family stared, confused. My brother Ryan frowned. Who's kintsugi? See, my mother blinked. Perplexed, Jessica shook her head, whispering, Ethan, what are you talking about? But Ethan wasn't paying attention to any of them. His excitement was directed entirely at me. I'm the lead curator for the Modern Resilience exhibit at the Met, he said, voice trembling with awe. For months we've been searching globally for the perfect centerpiece artist. An anonymous artist known only as Kintsugi, see, who communicated only through an agent. He paused, letting the moment stretch. We commissioned that artist for $75,000. The room fell silent. My mother's wine glass thudded onto the table. Faces around me drained to chalk. My father looked stunned. Ryan just stared, trying to reconcile reality with his long-held assumptions about me. My mother covered her mouth in humiliation. Jessica's face collapsed entirely, the golden child suddenly very small as the curator she'd brought to impress them stared at me like I was the discovery of his career. I finally spoke, my voice soft but razor sharp. You called my work pathetic. I said to Jessica, you told me to lie about it. I added, looking at my mother, you said I embarrassed you. They stared back at me. The people who had spent my whole life shrinking me. You don't even know what kintsugi is. I continued, It's a philosophy of repair, where the cracks are filled with gold, so the damage becomes the most beautiful part. It's about honoring what was broken. I leaned in slightly. For 27 years, you taught me that anything broken should be hidden, thrown away, that I should be hidden. I looked at my mother. You taught me I was something broken. I straightened. My work isn't about hiding flaws. It's about resilience, about turning the scars into strength. Silence suffocated the table. My family stared at their plates. Their pride, their certainty, shattered. Meanwhile, Ethan's excitement only grew. He pulled out a thick card. I can't believe it's you. We have so much to plan the reveal. The press launch. Here's my private number. Can we meet tomorrow? I'll cancel my flight. I looked at the card. Ethan Hayes, lead curator, Metropolitan Museum of Art, and felt something settle inside me. Something strong. Yes, I said. I'd like that. I stood, placing my unused napkin gently on the table. Ethan stood too, offering not a handshake, but his hand. I walked past my family without looking back. We stepped out of the private room, the heavy door closing behind us, leaving them with their untouched meals and the fractured image of who they thought I was. In the cool night air, I took the deepest breath of the evening. I realized the kintsugi I practiced wasn't just for pottery. I had been filling my own cracks with gold all along. Sometimes the people who should see you the clearest are the ones most blind.